Hello, friends, and welcome to the 27th episode of All New Snap Judgments. As always, I'm Roy Rogers, and I want to wish all of our loyal listeners and loyal viewers a happy Hanukkah and other happy winter, or if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, a summer holidays. And joining me to continue to celebrate this wonderful, beautiful month of December here in North America, because definitely the sun has definitely come out every day this week where I am right now, is my friend and yours, Aaron Glazer. Aaron, my friend, how are you on this gloomy Washington, D.C. day?
It's very, very cold, and it gets dark very, very fast.
Practically Sweden here in North America. All right, my friend, how are we continuing to celebrate these wonderful, wonderful declining days of 2023?
We are joined first by the best surfer player I know, the only person who has an all black and white surfer deck that I know of, who will soon have an all gold surfer deck. It is not trading card game, but the counter guy. How you doing?
Another day at it. Another day of splits and surfing.
Nice. And how could our viewers/listeners find you should they wish to?
I am almost exclusive to Twitter or X or whatever we're still calling it at The Counter Guy. I post my hot takes, my pretty splits, and every terrible split along the way.
So, just so you know, there's someone who now comments on all my YouTube videos and yells at me for not calling it X because I put people's Twitter links, and I swear, I'm just like, great, enjoy yelling at me about this. Thanks for watching.
It'll be tweets Twitter for as long as I live.
I mean, it's just like, yeah, whatever. All right, our other guest today is my favorite streamer I guess YouTuber, not streamer, when I first started. Then he took a little break. He is now back. He is an absolutely brilliant player. It's Homeboy Maxwell.
Thank you. You're too kind.
It's true. When I started, I watched Yeti, J-Hugs, and you, and then you went and lived life for a little while, and now you're back.
Yeah, school takes a lot of time. I think that one of the first videos I uploaded where you initially reached out to me was one of the first 5 videos I ever uploaded, and it's one of the top 3 videos on my channel still.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. And what is that channel should people wish to check it out?
I pretty much only am on YouTube nowadays, but it is youtube.com/Homeboy Maxwell.
YouTube, a much better platform than X, TCG.
Yes.
All right. Let's keep going. I'm going to quickly, before we go too far, announce a giveaway for our viewers. We're giving away, along with our friend Super Tech God, the Ringing in Your Ears bundle, the $70 bundle with 8,000 gold. Our hope is that you use that to immediately buy the Sugar, Spice, and Everything Ice bundle, because that's the best bundle they've ever released, and it's 7,500 gold. You can enter by subscribing here on the Marvel Snap Zone YouTube, or if you're not on the Marvel Snap Zone YouTube, subscribing there, commenting on the video there, subscribing to our YouTube, because that's where the winners are going to be announced, and checking out Super Tech Out on Switch. All you have to do is comment. You'll be entered to win. We'll announce winners in my Monday video. Cool?
Wow. I want to say two things.
Did I cut off your thing?
To our loyal listeners and loyal viewers. First, that they should join this contest. It's super sweet. It's a Black Bolt variant, but has lots of currencies and other things we enjoy. But yes, I do want to say that Aaron and I have been doing this for over a year, and there was a natural transition to this from me doing the spiel about our social medias, but instead he stepped on it. So I actually have a third revelation, which will lead into what we do, where I am the person who is commenting on every one of Aaron's videos, saying that he should call Twitter what it really is, X. So I want to first start with our X account, which is at SnapJudgeCast on X. We're owned and operated by Elon Musk. So make sure you go to x.com and follow us at SnapJudgeCast. We are extremely, extremely grateful and extremely proud to be the official podcasting partner and official podcast of Marvel Snap Zone, which means you should definitely join their Discord, where Aaron is very active. We have our own channel in there in the Discord. So please, please, please click on the link in the description of this episode, either on YouTube or your friendly neighborhood podcatcher. So please join the Marvel Snap Zone Discord. You can also email us where we get our X notifications at our email, which is snapjudgmentspodcast@gmail.com. We are on X's competitor and everyone's favorite extinct animals social media network, which is, of course, Mastodon, at Snap Judgments with an E at tabletop.vip. We are, last but not least, very importantly and critically to the giveaway, is our YouTube channel, which is at Snap Judgments Pod, where every single day, definitely every weekday and many weekend days, you can find Glazer's Daily Takes, which are now a full show. So, Aaron, if our loyal listeners were to become our loyal viewers, what would they find on the YouTube now?
So Den made this deck that I shared today as of recording, 2 days ago as of this release, that works until Blob releases, and I think it's the best deck in the game. It's like a Darkhawk Ravonna thing, and I think it's completely nuts. It's not the best deck? Counter Guy says it's not the best deck.
Nope.
Your version's better?
Nope.
Has to be a surfer deck.
I've seen some spice this season for sure, and I'm sure we'll get around to it, but I think there are some decks that very few people are playing that are far and away better than anything else you can be doing right now.
He's just talking about Loki again.
Well,
no.
Friends, let's put an X on this segment and move forward to the next overview, of what we're going to be talking about today. So we're going to quickly review last season. We're going to talk about the patch, which is very controversial on all levels at Marvel Snap in the Marvel Snap Zoneverse, and preview the upcoming season. So to start off a review of last season, I will throw it to my homeboy Maxwell. What was your overall sense of the season? And you can talk about any of the cards here, Miss Marvel, Gladiator, Annihilus, or everyone's favorite card, Martyr. You don't have to talk about all of them. You don't have to talk about any of them. But sort of how was the November season, the Marvels season for you?
For me, I really liked this season. It had a hard act to follow, though, right? Like our last two seasons were pretty crazy. Like the season with Elsa had a lot of like really strong cards releasing in Spotlight caches and stuff like that. Like it had Nico, Werewolf by Night, Elsa in the same set release. And then you have this set with like Miss Marvel is really the only standout card, maybe Annihilus, but Annihilus is only in like a very specific type of deck. Where I personally prefer that. I think it's a lot more approachable for like people who are trying to somebody just retreated, sorry. For people who are trying to have the game be affordable for them. I think Miss Marvel is a great card, very strong, obviously. It's like a mini Doctor Doom, and you even play Doctor Doom with it. Gladiator, I didn't care about. Annihilus, I think, is cool, but again, it's very niche. Martyr, I think, got kind of a bad rap, but I liked Martyr. Overall, the meta was kind of fine for me. Like, it wasn't my favorite. It wasn't the worst. But I don't know. I'd say like November is a pretty good season. It's just like when you kind of sandwich it in between like the extremes we've had recently, it doesn't really stand out that much, right? Like I think the Spotlight caches look really mid when you compare it to like the season before.
So I don't know. I think Ms. Marvel is like as good as anything. She's just not toxic, so it doesn't feel like she's busted.
Well, I think it's just Miss Marvel though is the thing. I think Miss Marvel is the only like standout card, and Annihilus is like a good power level, and then the other two I think are like a little below power level.
Yeah, that's fair. There's no Werewolf by Night here, right? Like there's not a second OP card. I get that. I have a hot take that, I mean, I don't think most people who've actually played both cards think is that hot, but people who have just looked at them think it is. I think Martyr is significantly better than Annihilus.
I think Martyr's a good card too. I just feel like people didn't want to give Martyr a try. I mean, like a 1/4 you can play on curve is pretty strong. I don't know. I think there's definitely decks for Martyr. Just it's like I feel like it didn't get the chance people normally give cards to be experimented with.
It's not worth 5 or 6K or whatever the current tokens
3.
are. It's 3.
Martyr's
it's
3.
only a 4.
But yeah, and Nihilus is a 6K, and like so, if we're looking at both text and say which one more often reads, you lose the game. The answer is Annihilus. Like, Annihilus far more often, in my experience, reads, you just lose this game.
Yeah, I think you're approaching this wrong, though, Aaron. Like, Annihilus also says you do something interesting.
Yeah, oh, it's more fun. I'm talking about
Yes.
pure quality here.
Right, but I'm talking, well, why were people more interested in the card? They're interested in fun cards, not like a card that has a weird deck building restriction.
So, I don't think that's true. I do that big survey every month of creators for,
Creators.
creators like fun too, right? Like, but they thought Annihilus was going to be the second best card of the month.
I think it was the second best card though, right?
No, sorry, Gladiator. Excuse me.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Well,
I think Annihilus is great. I think Annihilus is the second best card. But they thought Gladiator was going to be better than Ms. Marvel. It was Annihilus, Ms. Marvel. Yeah,
really.
Annihilus, Gladiator, Ms.
I
Marvel.
actually, it might just be the show. I don't really go on the creator Discord that much, but pretty much everyone I talked to said Gladiator would kind of just be meh.
I thought that would be the case, and the vote did not say, because immediately upon looking at Gladiator, I was like, oh, that's going to trigger on reveals and ongoings. And the second it does that, it's bad, right? Like, if you kill something, like, there's an off chance you're killing something important, but it's far more likely that if you're killing something, it's like Korg, and your opponent's just like, cool, didn't want to draw that, wanted the effect, next.
Yeah. There's a huge, like, I think, bias of those types of cards like Yondu, where it's like, oh, I just sniped their card. But, like, most of the time you don't snipe their card. Most of the time you thin your deck to the card they want to draw. But I think a lot of people have trouble separating that from, like, the game state.
Agreed.
Yeah. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Max.
I was just going to say, like, I'm with you, though, on Martyr. I think Martyr got a bad rap. But I think, like, Moongirling Martyr, like, you get 2 1/4s. If your board's full, it's just a 1/4. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a 1/4.
I mean, you don't have to Moongirl. You drop a Professor X on it. You just play, like, Teebs had a zoo list that was really, really effective. Like, you just fill every spot. And sometimes, like, 4, especially if you're pumping it with, like, a Blue Marvel or a Khazar or something, like, it moving is still probably going to just win another lane. Be careful of, I've never seen this happen, but I've heard tell of it happen. Be careful of Fisk Tower, though, because Martyr knows it can kill itself.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that, actually. That's pretty funny.
Well, it is a martyr,
will just, like, it is a martyr. I think also, like when you think about, like, card power balance for me, like, if Martyr was a 1/5, I think it would get nerfed. Like, I think a 1/5 is just too good, because the downside is, like, so much easier to mitigate than Titania. And Titania, like, sees play. You know what I mean? Like, Titania is a pretty good card, I would say. Definitely above average. And if Martyr had the same stat line and, like, an easier to deal with condition, like, I think it would be too good.
Yeah, I'm completely with you.
Yeah.
All right. Let's keep it going.
All right, so season review. Competitive play, how were they? All right, again, Maxwell, I'm going to throw it to you since TCG is taking a internet service provider provided break from the episode. What did you think about competitive play? What did you think about the ladder in both before and after Infinite, Conquest, and any tournament scene stuff you followed? Again, as always, talk about any of this, all of it, none of it.
Yeah, sure. So I think for me, like, getting to Infinite is always kind of a breeze because you have bots at this point. Like, I have, like, probably, like, almost 50% bot games when I get to Infinite at this point. And I'm kind of just pulling that stat out of thin air, but that's just kind of what it feels like. It is great for clickbait, though. Once you're in Infinite, I think the meta can be pretty interesting. Last season, it was a lot of, like, Alioth and Professor X and stuff like that, which I don't, like, hate, but it does, like having your last turn invalidated, I think, can be pretty frustrating, where I didn't play as much as I normally do. Like, for me, I prefer Loki type of metas instead of, like, Alioth Professor X types of metas, because at least, like, against both of those decks, I feel like I can do more against Loki, and I would rather, like, have really big, complicated turns than just, like, oh, well, Professor X locked down this location, kill and lock down this location, I just lose to Alioth, you know?
So, I have a really weird Alioth thing where I never see that goddamn card. Like, I just never see it. Well, so people play it, but, like, if I know Alioth beats me, then I'm not, like, why am I sitting around? Like, there's no question. Like, it's not I wonder if this beats me, and I don't do the I wonder if they have it. I assume they have it. So, if Alioth is going to beat me, then I just sort of like run, right? And if I know they're going to Alioth and I can beat it, I often just like move on with, like, right, like then I'm seeing Alioth and it's not actually upsetting me. So Alioth doesn't bother me in any real way, shape, or form. Whereas like Loki drives me a little crazy, because like for Loki a lot of times you have to run because you have to assume they got it, and you're just eating cubes if you don't. And like with I guess Loki's less annoying on 4, but it's still annoying. I feel like people just stopped playing Loki. I don't think it actually got any worse.
For me, like, I'm gonna be honest, like most Loki decks until I get like end of the season, like post Infinite, I'm in like top 2K or something like that pretty consistently. Like even until I'm like fighting people in like triple digit Loki, like I don't think Loki's that good. I really think it's just like the best players where Loki is good. And for me, like kind of what you're talking about, Alioth, I think it's really easy to retreat against as long as you're like conscious of the idea of like,
Right.
oh, they have Alioth, because like I know I just have to retreat. Loki, it's a lot harder to know when you have to go. And I think a lot of people found that frustrating with Loki because it's really hard to like gain information and like expect what they do. But for the most part, I feel like Loki is fine. Like I really haven't had any problems with Loki since like they reverted like the collector change, whenever that was, and like changed like Cable and Mantis and stuff like that. Like I felt like Loki's been like mostly fine for me, even in like a pretty high Infinite. Personally, I don't know. It's definitely preference, but
so I don't live in high Infinite. Largely because I just don't have the time in my day, right? So
Yeah,
like what I fundamentally do, most seasons I get Infinite like within a few days. I've had no time to play. I'm not even close to Infinite right now. I'm like 86. But I get Infinite in like 2 days, and after hang on one second.
yeah.
Roy, mute please. Thank you. Sorry, it was driving
That's
me
fine.
crazy.
That's fine.
Okay. So what I do is I get Infinite and then I immediately get like 50 gold and Infinite tickets that I also end up wasting because I don't have time for that. But I think Conquest is generally more interesting. But this season I decided to basically spend all of my time, like, which isn't a ton, right? Making sure I stayed in the top 5,000. So what would happen is I think I said this on the podcast before, so excuse me, loyal listeners. But what I would do is I would come home, do my dailies, play for a while, and I would get to like around rank 3,000. 3,500, 3,700, 3,200, depends on the day, right? I'd go to work, have a day, come home, play with the kid. By the time I got back to the game in the evening, I was ranked like 6,000 every day. So I'd spend the day climbing back up. And then the last week of the season, I realized I could do that or play Conquest. And I hadn't played Conquest all season. So I just didn't play Conquest for a week and fell to 10,000. I think a more skill... I mean, look, this is obviously a selfish choice, right? But I think a less grindy and more skill-centric ladder, more win rate-centric ladder would be nice.
Like just flat, like not cube rate, like win rate. You're saying, or
Yeah, just do win rate, and then be like, all right, if your win rate is high, you stay high, right? Like, there has to be some element of playing so that you don't just get a really early lead and then never play again. But and I guess, and I understand they want to incentivize us to play more, right? That's how they get us into the game. So like this infinite ladder is a way to incentivize us to play more. It frustrates me because like it's like, hey, are you a streamer? If not, good luck meaningfully engaging with this system.
Oh, one of the things, I get what you're saying, but one of the most interesting things about Snap to me is like how it's so optimal to retreat. Like being able to like playing to your outs is like a very real phrase in like Magic and Hearthstone. If I'm sure most of us have played those games. But in Marvel Snap, you can have a sub 50% win rate deck and you can just have good cube gain. And if you just like really understand your deck's limits, like those limit points of like when you retreat and when you snap, the win rate doesn't matter, which I think is one of the things I love about it, where I would be hard pressed seeing like a win rate based system, because like I think statistically some of the highest win rate decks are like Shuri, because they just have such like an honest game plan, right? Like it's like, okay, I drew Shuri, I'm going to put 56 power in 2 lanes, like 20 and 28 or whatever. Can you beat it? No. You retreat. like it has a 60% win rate in Conquest when I've checked stuff like that. Like it's a very, very consistent win rate deck. But it always has bad cube gain, right? Because people know what to expect out of Shuri. Like people know I have to leave here. Here's where they strong. If they snap, I have to go. And I think like Marvel Snap keeps a really good balance. Because also like Hella Tribunal is like a really fun deck that I see where that deck would just never see play in like another card game because you can't leverage like your cube gain and stuff like that.
So sure, then make it cube rate, right? Like I'm not against centering it on whichever of the two. What I'm fundamentally don't like is centering around the number of cubes you get, not necessarily the rate.
Okay. I like the snap points you're saying.
Right, yeah. Snap points being just like if you play a lot and you don't lose a lot, you will have more snap points. Always makes me a little bit sad. Hey, the counter guy's back.
No, that's fair. How's it going? Let's see.
Unbelievable.
I believe it. So counter guy, how was your climb to infinite, your season in ladder, infinite ladder, conquest, etc.? How'd it go?
Didn't make it to infinite. Couldn't land on a list that felt consistent enough to get through all of the Loki and Alioth in the 90s and above. Could get to 95 to 98, and then you just go on a hot streak where Loki draws your deck better than you do. Conquest, a lot of the same stuff. The decks that were winning were super consistent or Loki. And Loki, you either need to draw perfect, or they're your deck, but more efficient. I don't put a lot of stock in Conquest. I don't care about the Infinity border. But I did get the variant, buy all the stuff I wanted, and booster farm pretty well.
Fair enough. All right, let's move along to our next subject. We are going to talk patch.
All right, this patch is gigantic. All right. So let's talk about the sheer massacres that happened in here. Up top, America Chavez was completely reworked. Justice for Chavez. She is now a 2-cost, 3 strength. On reveal, top card of your deck gets +2 power. Alioth is now has been reduced to 2 strength and now only destroys unrevealed cards. One of the largest changes besides America, again, Justice for America, is Luke Cage, who is now a 2/3, but says ongoing, your cards here, which means only in his lane, can have their power reduced. Justice for Luke. All right. And Shadow King over here has had his power reduced to 2, so he's a 2/2. Elsa is now a 2/3, but similar to Luke, after you play a card that fills this location, so again, just her location, give it +2 power. This basically a new card, just like America Chavez. Kitty Pryde, though, she did get a buff. She's 1 strength. All right. And then we have the redesign of Black Knight's Ebony Blade, which is still a 4-cost, 0 strength, but ongoing, cannot be destroyed, and its power cannot be reduced. Glazer's favorite card, Ravonna Renslayer, got a buff. She's 3 strength now. Mindstone got nerf, sideways nerf, of now draws 2 1-cost cards, discouraging Thanos players who want for consistency from running other non-stone 1-drops. So, what do we think of these big ticket changes? TCG, what do you think? And why is the America Chavez change a crime against justice in the universe?
Yeah, nerfing Chavez is, I think, a big problem. The issue with this game is as they add more and more cards, the game's consistency doesn't change. We're given a pool of 12 cards. Just one-sided card draw doesn't exist out like Adam Warlock, who's awful, for example. And so they're pushing us more into the random, where we're at the mercy of our deck plus tiles, and we just have to deal with it, which I think is bad for longevity. It hurts to see Chavez just turn into another generic power boost. We have a lot of those already. We have a bajillion tiles, a lot of cards that just plus stuff. So I don't like that Chavez thing at all. Everything else I kind of get.
Wait, hang on. Let's talk some Chavez stuff first, because before we go on. So, Maxwell, agree or disagree about Chavez?
I hard disagree, actually. I was interested. I super disagree, actually.
Go for it.
Should I? Okay. So
Yeah.
I agree that I think Chavez's like redesign might be kind of lame, like, because it is just like a power boost. I don't really know much about Chavez's lore, so I can't really like speak to like how they redesigned her. But I think Chavez just was like a -1 to your deck, which is pretty uninteresting. And like I get like more randomness and variance in the game to an extent. Like, you know, now you have actually 12 out of 12 cards instead of 11 out of 11 cards. But like the best decks were so good because of their consistency, and they would feel really oppressive. Like, where when you play, you know, Conquest and stuff like that, like I think the good decks and the bad decks really were paralyzed by their consistency. And I think like a huge part of why I enjoy Stat personally is like, yeah, sometimes you get bad locations. Sometimes, you know, like things don't go your way with your draws and stuff like that. But like retreating and like leveraging your snap on that variance is like really, really interesting and engaging for me. Where I think like Chavez, which just made like your deck more consistent and also removed a card you can play. Because like that was another thing I didn't like about Chavez, just like before I get too distracted, is like there's a lot of times where like I'm like, oh, this is a really cool card in this deck, but because you can only play 12 cards, like something has to go. So like for instance, I really like the bounce deck, and I couldn't play like Bishop and Werewolf by Night and Darkhawk because like they just filled the same role. Like one of them had to go. And now that I don't have to play Chavez to just make like my Beast or Falcon more consistent, I can play like another cool card, which I think is interesting.
So I think I'm with Maxwell. I don't think Snap is a particularly inconsistent game. It's a 12-card game where every game, barring Darkhawk shenanigans, you see 75% of your deck. And not only do you see 75% of your deck, there's no such thing as like Mana Screw or Mana Flood, right? Like,
Big agree with all of that. Big agree with
and
all of
like
that.
those things didn't ruin Magic, right? That extra variance of those things didn't kill Magic, didn't make Magic an unplayable or bad game. And I don't think more variance in Snap, which is already one of the most consistent card games around, makes it a worse game. As far as like players, so an argument I keep hearing is that this hurts pool early Series 3 players because now they have to have more good cards. But increasing variance really benefits them, like greatly. Because if they're playing better players or players with better collections, right? Those players are like much, much, much more likely to be able to leverage that skill advantage than they are. And making the game more random only benefits those players. I don't especially like the Chavez redesign. Apparently she's decent. I don't really care. I think it's a boring redesign. But I think the game is more interesting without Chavez. And like the paradigm of deck building without Chavez has broken my brain at no less than 4 times the 2 or 3 days since the where I'm just like, oh, I want to do this, this, and this, and I'm like, can I do this consistently without Chavez? And like I keep hearing people go, I can feel the difference without Chavez, and like, no, that's your brain tricking you. It's like 5%, and you can't feel that difference in your brain, right? Like you might think you can, but like that's not the way human brains work. 5% over that large of a sample, like you think you can feel the difference, but like there's also the people who when Chavez was in decks would be like, oh man, I never draw what I want and I'm always drawing Chavez, right? Like it's just your brain's gonna trick you into feeling whatever you want to feel in that situation. And that's my spiel.
Couple of points of disagreement, I think. For me, one, you do feel a difference because you don't draw Chavez on turn 6 anymore. I think you were right about people who were complaining about they didn't feel the difference of including Chavez in their deck, because that is actually literally invisible. But I no longer, when I'm playing discard, literally draw Chavez on turn 6 in almost every game unless there's shenanigans.
In that matchup, I agree.
Discard
is the big loser.
That was the biggest worst.
But I'm just saying, like, you don't draw the card, right? And I think going back though to discard, I think like Chavez was a really interesting design that you could only do in Marvel Snap, right? Compared to Hearthstone or other games, because of the small deck size, of saying like, okay, you always draw this specific card on turn 6. That has drawbacks, which every time we've talked about Chavez, it comes out of this, right? Like sometimes you have like a 3-card out here. There's 3 cards left in your deck. Chavez, a card that will win, and an absolute dud. well, if having Chavez, you always draw her versus the out you had to win on turn 6 if you had drawn it, right? That's a legitimate cost, right? It's an interesting design space, I think. And there were decks, discard being the most obvious one, but other ones that there was like a reason to include Chavez rather than it being, reducing your deck to 11 cards, right? Like that you wanted to have the consistency, not just of what you drew earlier, but having a specific card with power consistently every turn, which again, I think is an interesting design space that you could only do in Hearthstone, or excuse me, in Snap, not in Hearthstone or other digital games. One more quick thing, TCG guy. I also think that yes, this Chavez might be good, but I think it's not thematic. You went from one of the most played cards in the game simply because of the mechanic of it to this like pathetic, unthematic design. Like, I think that's just designed to anger people. Like, if to me, this Chavez feels like they decided they're going to change Chavez and they just slapped a random card design on her, which I actually is the most infuriating part of it to me, which is not like, as a person who enjoys both the character of Chavez and enjoyed Chavez like being in my deck previously, is now I have this like boring ass like baseline Marvel Snap card that is practically just like a pool 1 card like level of card in my collection from a card that I have the most splits of. Like, I have really beautiful Chavezes and I don't want to play this card anymore. And whether or not she's like generically good, all right, that's fine, but she's not dynamic in any way. So again, you took one of the most played cards and you turned her into like kind of just a generic like card that doesn't have any connection to the character or what she did before. So that's my argument about why I think these are terrible. Go ahead, TCG guy.
I do think that the 5%
counter guy. Sorry, apologies.
TCG works. That's what everybody calls me for short. I think the 5% argument is also something that's a little off. Enough people are playing the game, and enough people are playing enough games that I think that the amount of times that you are going to feel a loss because you didn't draw something you needed early, specifically some of the more mid-range combo decks that need an essential piece on 3 and 4. Obviously, you are trading your 6 for a better 3 and 4. That's why she wasn't the ideal choice for negative decks, but she helps push negative into your turn 3 and 4. And I think if I play 100 games of Conquest, the 5% increase is gonna feel noticeable.
I mean,
because
cognitive science disagrees with you.
I mean, 5%.
Like, it's just like, that's just not the way. Like, it's just not the way brains work. I'm not trying to be rude.
Oh, I know, like, I understand that, but
like, brains fundamentally do not work that way. You will think you do, you will believe you do, but like, whenever humans are asked to like tell 5% differences of things, like we are absolutely terrible at it. And like, it's not 5% by turn 3; it's like 5% by turn 6. Like,
sure,
you'll blame things on it when you don't see it, but like,
absolutely,
that 5 times out of 100 is not going to feel any significantly different than the other 5%.
That's the upside of the Chavez, is you can, in her design space, if you were a combo deck or a deck that needed a specific card in that 3 to 4 range, you're going you see the post in like the Discords all the time that like, there's 3 cards left in deck, I draw Chavez on 6. People are going to feel that more, for sure. You're going to see those posts more that I swung and missed more often than not. And I think if we took a big enough sample size of the decks that did run her, say like the Lokis, those competitive Loki decks that need Loki before 6, you're going to see there's probably an upswing in those people that are going to swing and miss because they don't have that little bit of consistency.
I mean, yeah, it's gonna happen, right? Like, but you feeling like if, let's say, there was never an America Chavez in the game,
sure,
and you play 100 games of Snap or 1,000 games of Snap, you will never feel the difference in that 5% win rate. You will never feel the difference in that 5% of games. Like, that's just, your brain is not primed.
You don't
to do
think
that.
You would notice like 5 out of 100 games?
Your brain literally does not work. Like, I read so many brain things. I'm a teacher, right? So like, I read a bajillion brain things. Like, you will, because Chavez exists. If I go, so okay, I posted a Phoenix Force deck yesterday as of the posting, or 2 days ago as of the posting. I don't even remember when I posted. I do a lot of videos. And someone was like, this deck is terrible. I just played 14 games and didn't draw into multiple man, a kill, and Phoenix once. This is unplayable. And like, guess what? I played the same deck and got an infinite ticket already, and like was
Sure.
seeing it super consistent. Like the our brain, and like, and then people are going, you can't play this without Chavez, and it's like, you're not feeling 5%. You go on runs, you go on streaks. Your brain starts drawing conclusions sooner than that. Like, the difference is real, and you will lose more games for not having Chavez in your deck. But I didn't draw, and like, you'll notice when you draw Chavez on 6 or don't draw Chavez on 6, of course, or when you draw that Phoenix Force on 6, that you'll go, that could have been card 3, I guess, right? But in reality, it would have been card 5, right?
I feel
Because it's
like the
only pushing
14
everything up
guy.
1.
I feel like the 14 game guy has a different problem though. I get this a lot because I'm an ex-Magic the Gathering semi-pro, played Pro Tour, Grand Prix, Pokemon Regionals, so on and so forth.
Mhm.
The guy who tests a deck 10 games at his kitchen table saying that the deck is bad, that he net decked off of a Nationals win, he just doesn't have enough data. I feel like those guys that are like, I played 8 games and I went 0 for 8, if they played 92 more, their percentages would look more accurate. Is there a difference between 100 and 1,000? That's a whole different debate.
Mhm.
But as somebody who personally really latches onto a lot of my losses and a lot of my close calls to the card I needed, Hella combo being an example, the amount of times that my Hella or my Modoc are in the wrong spot, atrocious. I attach to every one of them, but I still don't run a Chavez in that case.
Well, because you want them on the last turn, right? And you need the upside of the last turn
Yeah.
play.
Yep.
Like, right. So I get exactly what you're saying. It's just, I've seen, like, in everything I've ever read, I've seen no evidence of it. Like, it's just, maybe I'm wrong, and someone in the chat, someone in the comments will be like, here's a source. Chat, sorry. Someone in the comments will be like, here's a source that proves you wrong, right? But like, I've read a lot about this, and I've literally just like, that's not, human brains are particularly bad at numbers. We just like to convince ourselves we're good at numbers. We're really good at,
Fair.
we can be good at numbers, but like, it requires actual work. We, like, our number intuition as humans is notably, like, embarrassingly bad.
I mean, we
But like,
can't agree. It's definitely the most volatile of the nerfs by far.
Friends, as much as the strengths and weaknesses of using cognitive science to describe human social experiences, it's an absolutely thrilling thing that I do have strong opinions about, but I'm not going to share them. And we're going to move on to Luke Cage. We're going to skip Alioth because I don't think anybody in this group here has any strong objections to the continued nerf of Alioth, because I know, thanks to Glazer, that Snap Judgments is officially an anti-Alioth podcast. But
wait, we are?
let's
I don't care
talk
about
about Luke
Never cared about
Cage.
Alioth.
Let's talk about Luke Cage. Another travesty done by Second Dinner to an awesome Marvel Snap character.
Nope.
All right,
Good
Homeboy,
riddance to
do you
bad
have
rubbish.
any strong Luke Cage opinions?
I'm pretty. I think Luke got done a little dirty. Like, making him like just lane specific is pretty brutal. But I don't know. It's also like a pretty lame card because it's like just so. It was so like, it's so easy to put Luke in your deck and just play it on
Mhm.
2. And I think stuff like that is generally pretty boring. I'm not gonna go back into Chavez, but like kind of the same reason where it's like, well, like, why would I not play this? You know what I mean? Like, it just takes up a spot. Where I think making Luke more specific to scenarios is good, instead of just like, I can just play Luke in any lane, and then when I get Shadow Kinged, it doesn't matter. And that is kind of more interesting to me, where they definitely like nerfed him pretty hard because like his effectiveness is reduced by so much.
Mhm.
But I don't think it was unwarranted. It's just, I don't know if this was like extreme. Like, I don't know if this is too extreme, basically.
TCG.
I am glad the card is nerfed. I think the only way that Luke should have existed as he was previously is if you made him a 5 or a 6 drop. The character of Luke Cage is a bruiser type, strong, Superman-esque. If he had been a 5/8 with that ability, or like a 6/9, something big, powerful end of game, I don't think it would have mattered for the same reason that Maxwell was saying, that you have an impactful character that you are giving up space for, you're giving up turn for. As the 2/2, put him in everything. He counters. It was stifling for deck builders who wanted to play a Scorpion for cheeky math tricks. Shadow King is a tech card. Valkyrie is a tech card. It was limiting just to exist as a 2/2.
I agree with that a lot. I also like bringing up Valkyrie. I love Valkyrie as a design, but when Luke Cage is just like generically in like such a huge portion of top decks, like you just can't play Valkyrie, which is really like lame. Like I think it's an interesting card design that is just like removed.
So there's a problem though. And the problem isn't that Luke is nerfed. The problem is that they designed the game for 6 months with the previous Luke in mind.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I think like the
suddenly,
game would. Sorry, go ahead.
no, it's okay. It's like suddenly a bunch of effects that like afflicted that were like good, but if inconsistent, are overrunning the meta. And there's not another answer, right? Like now that Luke is basically like this lane only, there's nothing you can do about that. And like they designed all these wide affliction effects that now are just like if it happens to you, it happens to you. Um they're going to regret this. Like straight up, they're going to regret this change. It's going to negatively affect the game in a matter of
Literally.
time because they didn't plan for this accurately. Not because Luke should have existed the way he did, because I don't think he ever should have. But once he does and you design for it, now we've changed the paradigm.
Expanding on what you're saying a little bit, I think that Marvel Snap is kind of hitting this point where they've like made a lot more powerful cards. Like when, Series 4 and 5 was just releasing and stuff like that, and there wasn't as many cards. Like nothing really stood out as it does now. But I think you're kind of seeing this problem where it's like, man, some of the best cards in the game are just tech cards that are really easy to play. Like playing armor is trivial. Like it takes nothing to play armor. Why would you you know what I mean? Like it's like, oh, it protects against Shang-Chi. It just hoses destroy. Same with Cosmo. You know what I mean? Like these tech cards that were designed really early just end up being really, really good for not that much of an investment because they're like low energy, so you can get them down early and you can kind of like shape your game plan around them. Where I definitely agree with what you're saying, but I think it's going to kind of like, I don't know honestly how it's going to be addressed in the design space because I feel like a lot of tech cards are just a little bit like generically too good. And I don't know how they're going to kind of solve for that, like coming up. You know what I mean?
I know the answer, I think. Like the answer is you make most of them threes. Like two's a really, 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 yeah, I know Surfer Happy TCG is like telling me. But like 2 is a really, really, really easy spot to fit in curve. Because like you can play it at multiple points along the game without giving up too much. Whereas 3 is, if you tried to play Mobius, you know how awkward that gets anytime but exactly on turn 3. So I think making them threes as a general rule is better than what they did to Luke. Although I recognized why they did what they did to Luke.
I think like trying Luke out is going to be interesting because it functions very much like armor now. Like it basically has the text armor has, but just on Luke Cage. It's just like, obviously it's a very different kind of effect, but I don't know, like increasing the cost of something by 33%, it like kills a lot of cards, right? You know what I mean? Like going from 2 to 3 is a huge nerf to a lot of things. Where even like adding a point of power, like I don't think like armor is playable as a 3/3. You know what I mean? Like as a 3/4 maybe, but like it will be. It's really hard to like properly get that like in between.
I agree. You want the effect, you pay for it.
I don't know. We'll see.
I don't know. I think the major effects, like Luke Cage, previous Luke Cage, obviously, I've said it before that I favored him as like a 5 or a 6, but I think they should either take the Adam Warlock approach. It's a really good effect. Make it cheap, but don't give the power. Obviously, that leads to the negative discussion, but the fact that Adam Warlock is the only I draw card we have, and he's been a 2/0 the whole time. I don't know if they ever plan on reworking him, because it's such an unbalanced ability. If you took something like Cosmo or armor, took it at a 2-0 or a 3-0 or what have you, you're trading power, points on board, for effect. And I think that they need to consider something like that more than just this, I'm going to rework this card and give it +1 power. I don't think that +1 power is as impactful as the ability.
Fair. All right, let's move on. Okay, there's one other card here I really want to talk about, and then if you guys want to talk about any others, we can. I hate this Elsa change. If Elsa wasn't a season pass, I'd be fine. I just think, A, I keep losing cubes because I can't get it in my head. But that's not why I hate it. I hated it from the beginning. It's just, like, you sold us this card 2 months ago, then you nerfed it. And, like, everyone was okay with the nerf, and it wasn't really seeing as much play, and it felt like, good, but fine. And then they're just like, okay, but what if we made it bad? And I really hate that. Because, like, it's not good now, and they killed, like, half of the synergies and the fun things you can do with it. And, like, they sold us this card, and it feels now like it was under false pretenses.
What I've told everybody is they turned Elsa from a generic aggro card that was just value. It is now a movement card. It is now for Jeff, for Nightcrawler, for Vision, for Spider-Man. Because
no,
you
it
play
is
it
not
in that
for
lane, get
Spider-Man.
the
It
buff and
does
move
not
it.
work with... Nope. It does not work with Spider-Man.
Does it not?
It does not, I promise.
Oh, that's even worse then.
Yeah.
That's awful. Yeah, then it's just even worse.
Mm-hmm.
I do have
the
a
change
comment.
definitely
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No,
Oh,
you can go. Okay, I was
I
just gonna say,
was gonna
I
go
am
to
a
a
little
different card.
surprised. Fair. I was gonna say I'm definitely a little surprised by the change, just because like it did kind of feel like out of nowhere. You know what I mean? Like I feel like Elsa really like I didn't really feel Elsa anywhere as like a 2/2 with the previous text box. And like definitely like giving it 1 point of power back and making the effect so much worse. I don't really understand. Where like I don't know if like they had some internal metrics that like pointed that Elsa was going to be insane or something, but like it really feels like it came out of nowhere. But I think like sometimes when Second Dinner does their balance analysis, they base it off of stats from like 3 weeks ago or something like that. Like I think that's why. Oh, sorry.
Patches are a month out, just so you know. Go ahead.
Yeah. So like maybe like when they first changed Elsa, they were like, oh, like this just isn't enough. Like Elsa's going to be so good, and they locked it in.
Mm-hmm.
And then now it's like, well, Elsa hasn't really been anywhere for the last month. She's been kind of MIA, and now she's a lot worse than before. So I don't know.
And then I just have one thing to add about Ravonna. I think taking cards that people want to play with and pushing them to a specific archetype is awful. They clearly mentioned they like it in C3, and that was their whole shtick with this patch. Like they mentioned the patch notes that Ravonna's great in C3 now. And I think that's the wrong way to fix Ravonna. I think all they had to do this entire time was make her look at base power, and we'd all be happier.
I'm pretty happy now. I think she's real good.
I think Ravonna. I was gonna say I think Ravonna is a 2-1 I was pretty happy with. I actually got the deck I hit Infinite with and like had the best performing stats with last month was a deck that played Ravonna instead of Zabu and like had Adam Warlock in it. Like it was a really fun deck. It was just like playing Ravonna instead of Zabu, the Goblins, and Adam Warlock, and it was really good for me. It was really solid. And I love Ravonna in C3, but it was I've had a good time with Ravonna.
If they made her C base power, all the stuff we currently play with is great. The stuff that nobody's playing her with, like the Iron Hearts and 1 power stuff, isn't affected by tiles. She's good after you draw Mr. Negative as an energy drop for Mr. Negative. Not that they need it, but it would affect the cards in your hand. I think it just makes it a more unique design space and a more unique card if it looks at base power. Especially when Wakanda Emissary comes around and all of a sudden your Mystique's a 3/2 and Ravonna shuts off. That is mind-numbingly annoying on that card. And a simple change of just looking at base power would fix all of that. Instead, we get her as a 2/3. It's so weird to me.
So the problem is it's damn near overpowered with Bast if it looks at base power. Like, Bast already pushes the limits of acceptable power, basically whenever he comes into the meta. And, like, being able to say that now all my 0s are 3s and get -1 is probably too good.
I'm with that a good amount, honestly. Because when Ravonna first came out, I thought it worked by base power, and I played her with Bast.
Yeah.
And, like, I think, like, well, like, that's a C3 example, but I'm like pretty okay with it. I honestly think I really like what they've done with Ravonna, honestly, from what she was before. Like, I think Ravonna is like some of the better adjustments they've had for me personally in a while, where it feels like now Ravonna like has a niche like Zabu, like Psylocke and stuff like that, and she's like relevant in like the stuff she wants to be played in. For me, at least.
All right. I'm going to move us forward to the other changes, which are less balanced changes and more long-term templating fixes, which is they've now clarified what affects unrevealed and revealed cards. I think the biggest change here overall is Arrow. Arrow has been, I think, completely reworked, which to create some really interesting nuanced cases. So her new text is, let me make sure on reveal, she's now a 5/9 again, and on reveal, move the last enemy card played anywhere to this location. What do we think about these changes in general? It doesn't just have to be focused on Arrow, it can be focused on Stegron, who got a small buff and clarification that he only affects revealed cards. Phoenix Force got the bug fix, which I know will make Glazer happy. What do we think about these sort of like templating cleanup cards of Spider-Man, Stegron, Juggernaut, Arrow, and Phoenix Force?
Phoenix Force doesn't fit. We'll talk about that separately.
Yeah, Phoenix Force is a special case currently. I don't think the changes are impactful. I don't think Stegron is worth running over any other current option in the 4 slot. I love Stegron. Me and Explodium played a ton of Stegron leg controls, but I don't think those lane controls work anymore, and Stegron doesn't have a home at 4. I don't think he's an easy fix moving him down or up or more power. Juggernaut's going to basically always be a one-trick pony / turn 6 trick. Arrow doesn't have a home either. She was at her best when she was a move everything played during the B Arrow days. I just don't see Arrow being playable in a move control deck over Magneto or God forbid Alioth if you have the priority. I just don't think these changes are enough to make these cards playable in the grand sense of things.
Maxwell?
I pretty much agree with all that. I mean, I want to retry Arrow at some point because I do think moving a previously moving a card if you have prio is interesting. It is if you play it on 5, maybe there could be some stuff you could do there. The other changes are basically just text box formatting changes, which are they're fine. Stegron, I'm happy gets another point. I really like the Phoenix Force bug fix because I liked Phoenix Force before. And even with multiple men, it was still interesting. It was just a lot weaker. Honestly, I don't really have any strong opinions. It's just I'm really happy they fixed Phoenix Force because Phoenix Force is really fun.
So, Juggernaut's exactly the same, just for the record. Nothing changed. He's the one that didn't change. Spider-Man got worse. Not hitting unrevealed is actually a reasonably big deal for him. The other cards don't super matter. Because Stegron is could have hit the revealed, or they could. I guess they both could, but Stegron's point on curve was you were often trying to be haha, you were trying to mini Juggernaut it, right? So Stegron is worse, but Stegron's not good enough for it to matter. Spider-Man saw a lot of play. Yeah, I just think Spider-Man's a fair amount worse, not much worse, and I don't really care about the other changes except Phoenix Force, and I think Phoenix Force is now a solid tier 2, if not tier 1 deck, and I absolutely love it, and it's probably what I'm going to hit Infinite with when I actually have an hour to myself.
Well, Spidey, though, you now have a bit more control over what card you move, right? If there's a unrevealed and a revealed card in a location, he only moves the revealed one, right?
If you have priority.
Right.
Otherwise,
if you have priority. Yeah. Well, obviously, if you don't have priority, they both be revealed.
Yeah,
so it doesn't mean anything. So,
right.
So I mean that I think I do agree, Glazer, that's a nerf, but I think it's at least like there's interesting play now, right? Like sometimes you want to hit the card that is revealed there, and so maybe grabbing priority to move it into a lane,
Like
to
moving
cause
Deadpool away from Venom.
yeah, something like that,
Yeah.
or Carnage or whatever.
I bet if you move Venom away from Deadpool, you're this, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
either way, that's fundamentally similar.
Yeah, it's fundamentally similar, but it can mess up your opponent's plays. Like I mean, I do agree that it is a slight nerf, but there's now at least play. It's not just like only a nerf.
You know what there's no play for? My Phoenix Force Multiple Man. You better be
God.
packing Absorbing Man, and I'm just like, I beat the crap out of Shuri Red. Like, if I see the combo, it's just like, okay, cool. So I'm just gonna put 28 power in every lane, and we're gonna go home. Cool.
I'm
It's
at almost
so
80%
strong.
win rate with Phoenix Force right now.
Yeah, it's absurd.
Exciting times. All right. Speaking of exciting times, new card time. All right. Oh, wait, before we do, we got to talk. Oh, right. We got to talk about this non-issue, which is the addition of, what are they calling them? Galleries? Is that what this thing?
No.
Albums.
Albums? Yeah.
Albums. All right. There's currently 2 or 3 actually with the Venom. Venomized villains, Jim Lee, X-Men, and Hip. For some reason, I thought there were more Hip cards in here than there is in
there's always 12.
But I mean, I just thought there were just more Hip cards than 12. But anyway.
Oh, there are.
There is. They like cherry picked 12.
So yeah, let me explain the system then. Okay, so
this is even stupider than
each thing has 12 specific variants, which is ridiculously stupid because I have 80 hips, and as you can see, I'm still missing 3. For every 3, you get a new thing in order. So for the hip one, which I have as our example because it's the only one I have any of, I have you get the Cosmo Avatar if you have 3. If you have 6, you get 2,000 credits. If you have 9, you get the hip Cosmo, and if you have 12, you get the Cosmo emote. Sometimes they have spotlight keys in them. I believe the Jim Lee has a spotlight key. One of them has tokens, and one of them has spotlight keys in them too. The second one is basically always a resource, and like a reasonable amount of a good resource.
And you have a month to do this?
No, you have forever to do this. These never expire as far as they're saying. They don't include bundles, ultimates, or whatever, any of the hard to find variants that are like time limited. But it is 12 specific. It's a punch card idea. It's a way to sell like am I gonna buy the Captain America hip, which I would not otherwise buy? Maybe they might get extra money out of people for that. I'm not.
That's exactly
thrilled.
what it's for.
Yeah, I'm not thrilled about the idea of like people buying like 6 extra because they have a gambling issue.
I mean, it's not a gambling issue in this case. It's a collector's issue, right? Because you always know what your reward is, right? I mean, Glazer, you have the only reward you really need, which is that hip Cosmo. Like the hip Cosmo is worth buying a bunch of random hip cards
well, I didn't have to.
I know, but I'm just saying I might have to. I don't have most of the hips I have aren't in this collection. So
my only thought on it is like I understand they want to monetize it, but like just arbitrarily putting in variants that like nobody had, even like the people who have every variant in the game, is kind of crazy to me. Because like I know it's to like monetize the new system, but like if you already spend like that much money on collecting variants and stuff like that, like just throw a bone. You know what I mean? Like just give me the new emote. You know what I mean? Like I have like Dan hit variants. Like I probably have like 7 that just like aren't like here. You know what I mean? Like it's just, it's so
like
it feels
60
really
that aren't here.
Yeah. Well, also like the cards they pick really bother me because it's like there's some cards you're only gonna get if it's random, like you get a mystery variant, or if it's like I am targeting it to finish the chain. Because like they put Captain America and Omega Red in there, and unless you like buy Dan Hip Captain America when you're Series 1, you're not using that. You know what I mean? Like it's not getting used. Or like in Venomized Villains, they have Baron Moore Venomized, which is just like the least played. You know what I mean? Like no one is playing Baron Moore. I am not spending 1,200 gold for a Baron Moore. You know, like it's crazy. I don't know.
I said this when they revealed it. All this is an excuse to get the people that are hoarding their gold for bundles to weaken and spend gold on something else. This is a way to reduce the amount of stockpiled resources that people have, specifically the cash one, gold. Because somebody like me, I can spend 700 right now, get Claw, and get 2,000 credits. I would never buy Hip Claw. I like hips, but I would not buy it. I would try to pull it. But I'm one away. Now there's an impulse action where, well, 700 gold for 2,000 credits is great. And that's what it is, because I'm saving gold for bundles, but now I'm questioning my saving. And if I spend 7 here, do I spend $9 to get 700 more when I need it? Most likely. That's what this is. This is an attempt to get people who are saving and normally would save because they have nothing to spend on except what they're saving for, to spend extra. And I think it's greasy. I do not like it.
I have one more complaint. Well, 1.5 more complaints. The cool thing that they released this month was the emotes, right? And the emote is always the 4th in the pack, and that's just really shitty. It's like, unless you are uber whale. And like, I'm a whale. I have 68,000 tokens right now. So I'm a whale.
And 5 digits?
No, 66. Yeah, 68,000.
Wow. Okay.
68,400 or something like that. Whatever. I looked yesterday.
He's a 1%er is what he's trying to say, homeboy.
Right.
Yeah.
But like, hey, and I collect Dan Hips. I'm still missing 3, and I don't have the emote. That's stupid. You gotta throw people some kind of a bone with your cool new content. If you release, like, it's when they release Series 5 cards and everyone can get one, and it was just like, when you release a bunch of cool new content, it really helps your game if people can access it. And the other complaint I have is that whenever they do something new, they overcomplicate the shit out of it.
This is like a little overcomplicated if you're already in Snap
to get the
emote. I think if you're to get the emote. But I think like if you're saying like they introduce new emotes and this is too much to get.
Would you like to have 6 steps before you can do it?
No, that's fair. That's fair. I was gonna say, like, I don't think galleries or whatever they call it is that complicated, but I agree about the emotes. I would really like to see. I mean, this is like just like a pretty common game philosophy. Like, they give an infinite card back. I think if you're like above like 10K or 5K infinite, you should get like an emote for this season. Like, I feel like something like that would be really cool.
Great deal.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of like cool ways to incentivize like the new resources also, but they just have to like I would just do it a little bit differently.
But they don't.
This makes a lot more money though. This is a lot. Yeah, this is way better.
But do a couple for free and then a couple that are paywalled, right? Yeah. And then people aren't complaining as much. Like, it's just it's so short-sighted.
It is short-sighted on purpose. It's meant to be greasy. It's to generate revenue.
Sure. But like, they could generate the same revenue if they gave us 2 for free and had like the same 3 locked here, right? 2 for being 10,000 in rank, 1 for like login rewards. And then people aren't mad that these 3 are, or aren't as mad that these 3 are locked because they at least can get a couple others. And they'll still spend, but they won't be as angry about it.
We haven't even mentioned the 4th album, the Hellfire Gala album.
Yeah.
Which is going to drop with a Hellfire takeover of nothing but 1,200 variants.
We don't know that yet.
Well,
I mean, it's gonna be, but we don't know that yet.
I mean, they showed us the album for it, didn't? That's where the Captain Marvel variant is.
Oh no, they showed us that album, but they didn't show us how much all the variants cost.
Are the Luke Cage and Sarah both web store exclusives?
You can get them just regular collections.
Okay.
The web store exclusive is you can only buy one, and it's just a way to get them. I bought the Luke one because I managed to not buy the Luke Cage earlier, and I was like, screw it, I'll spend $15 to just have that Luke Cage, which I wanted anyway.
And you get
that's a really good hit.
It is a really good hit. I'm looking at it right now, considering buying it. By the way, I have a 90% win rate with America Chavez according to the stats that it just gave me. I just want to say again, Glazer was hating on that earlier. Officially, Marvel Snap told me that card was busted. All right, I just want to say.
I think it was the best card in the game. Like, I think that's why it had to be nerfed.
I'm just joking.
It was the best card in the game.
Let's move on here, friends, to actually talking about new cards. All right, let's go to Sebastian Shaw, our Season Pass card. He is a 3-cost, 4-strength, Series 5 Season Pass bro. All right, when this card permanently gains power, gain +2 more power, wherever this is. All right, TCG. What do you think of Seb here?
I think it's the second best card in the Surfer decks behind Surfer, generally speaking. I think your reward for your investment, if you play it right, is so high that it's an auto-include in anything that has Surfer in it currently. I do think that people are still really smitten by large numbers, which is why you're seeing a lot of awkward decks with awkward cards to plus power and the new Chavez being crammed into the Surfer decks. I think once the dust settles, I think you're going to have a very consistent deck that can attack 3 lanes with a noticeable amount of power with very little effort.
I think it's a fine card. I think you're probably overrating it because you love Surfer. Like, I don't think the current versions of Shaw are better than the ones from last season that were running Werewolf.
I said that like before we started recording, and I definitely agree. But I think like Shaw is fine. Like Shaw is like a good power level card. I think Shaw is like very fair, very fine stats. I don't have any complaints about it. I just think like in like 90% of cases, I would just rather play Werewolf. You know what I mean? Like Werewolf is just better most of the time, I would say.
So Shaw gives you Brood, and Brood is great, which is like the argument against, and Werewolf does not want to be in the same deck with Brood as a general rule, so it ends up getting like wildly complicated.
Yeah, but that's like just again like a Surfer argument, right? Because like Brood is only played in like Patriot, where you're not playing Shaw or Wolf, and then Brood is played in like Cerebro 2, which same thing, and then Brood is played in Surfer, right? Like it's
Right,
just
right.
those.
But Shaw is only Surfer. I spent hours. I ended up having a long conversation with Cam earlier. It took me literal hours to find one deck that was doing well with Shaw that didn't have Surfer. I found it. It's a Deadpool thing. It's a video yesterday as of people watching this, but like, it's rough.
I saw that deck, and that definitely also looked like the best non-Surfer one for me. Sorry.
No, I think a lot of the arguments for Shaw will be Surfer related. I think the thing that keeps me playing Surfer at such a high win rate is I understand whatever cards you play have to be good on 3, 4, and 6. If you're playing Sarah. If you forego Sarah for whatever reason, you still have choices to make. Surfer, for all intents and purposes, is a 1 card per turn deck. You play a 3-drop on 3, a 3-drop on 4, a 3 and either Nova or a 2-drop on 5 if you're not Sarah, and then 2 to 3 things on 6. And I think Shaw replaces a lot of stuff people were jamming into Surfer decks to have equal or more cost without having to cram garbage into your deck. It easily replaces Maximus, for example, because there is no downside to Shaw on 3 if you're a regular Surfer deck. Because you can Nova on 1 into whatever on 2, Shaw on 3, and still end up at 7 or more power passively. Werewolf on 6 with 2 other 3-drops is okay, but Werewolf is really good on 3 because you get all the extra turns. So I do think that the Brood is a great argument there. Werewolf doesn't want Brood, but Werewolf also wants a lot of weird fluff to keep bouncing back and forth, like less Sarah, more Nico, for example. And I think Shaw is just good power passively with very minimal investment. A Nova, an Okeo, an Ironheart, and all of a sudden you're pushing 9 power, which isn't that hard to do.
I'm with it, I think. I think Shaw is just a different version of the deck. I think that they're both relatively comparable. I prefer the Werewolf version, largely because Luke Cage was changed. And Shaw has to be on the board for most of his effect. And once you get to High Infinite, I promise you. Once you get to like tournaments, I promise you, you're going to be seeing a shit ton of Shadow King.
I also, just to add to that, like comparing what you prefer, I think there's like one of the best things about Werewolf by Night is like how hard it is to know where he's going to be. Like it's a forced like 1 in 3, 50-50, whatever you want to call it. And like if you play Shaw, like it's obviously like if you are revealing second, it's the same end result because like you don't have prio, so like you're not going to get Shadow King does it badly or Shang-Chi or whatever. But if you're going first, like Shaw is a lot worse when you go first, and the Wolf is not, because like they still have to guess where they're playing against the Wolf, which I think is a huge deal.
I think that's my fundamental difference between the two. Although I think Shaw is very good, I think he just falls short of great.
I think he's a great budget card. Well, budget card. I mean, like he's a season pass card, but he's very good. Like I like getting the season pass is a lot easier than getting a Series 5 card consistently, like from Spotlight caches. I think he's a very good like budget Werewolf by Night.
I could see that.
All right. I don't have any strong opinions about Sebastian myself. I think he's kind of the most boring of these cards we've gotten in a while. All right. The way this works. All right. We do the Spotlight caches. One of our guests gets to pick which one is their favorite for each Spotlight catch as we go through it. So we'll start with you, TCG. Which of these three would make you want to open Spotlight caches this week?
I have 4 saved that I almost spent for Stegron because I skipped the Kaiju bundle, and this is his second best art, realistically. I'm a sucker for 30.99 art.
But hip.
I know. I like
hip
the
one is so
mechanized stuff. I have the Scorpion, the Lizard, I've split Scorpion to gold. I think the 30.99 split to gold very well because of their color palettes, and I almost went for this Stegron. He's just not good enough as a card to warrant the spending.
Completely fair. All right. What is our first new card? Is, I think, one of the most interesting this month is Blob. Blob is a Series 5 6K token big boy, 6 cost, 4 base power. It has the on reveal, merge your deck into this and gain its total power. And its ongoing ability is cannot be moved. All right, homeboy, tell us what you think about the Blob.
So I have 2 things about the Blob. One, this is like kind of getting into the other cards we're going to discuss, but I don't know how his on reveal works. If it's I eat all of the deck and then that's my stats. Like if I play Shuri and then Blob or something,
It'd be
and then
the Shuri happens before reveal.
The Shuri happens before reveal, so it doesn't get doubled.
Correct. It would be 8 as a base.
8 as a base. I still think like there's a pretty good chance Blob is gonna be the best card this month from the bundles. I think Havoc is really hard to evaluate. Like I could see it being good, but like the downside's insane. Like it's actually crazy. I don't know if you guys played a lot of Hearthstone, but there was a card that had like the same effect in Hearthstone a long time ago that like just wasn't played because it was so terrible. It was straight up like sacrifice 3 like mana to give all of your cards +3/+3, which is basically what it does. And it was terrible then. Maybe it'll be playable in Marvel Snap. I think Blob is probably going to be the best card this month. And I'm excited for Blob. I think it's also in a really good cache.
TCG?
I think Blob is playable because it counters Darkhawk. You get a finisher that just turns Darkhawk
That's
off,
true.
and that automatically makes it useful in a big path of decks.
Yep.
I think you're going to see some weird plays where someone does something like Magic, Blob, Taskmaster, and just sets themselves up a mini Infinite that turns off your Darkhawk. And I think that warrants it at least being playable, if not just a good backup plan for Infinite decks that miss the Infinite, a Lockjaw deck, or those kind of weird big combo decks.
I think this is gonna split like Shuri decks, like Sauron decks specifically, right? Like I think you're gonna play this with Red Skull and stuff like that. And if you still have Taskmaster, like if you're not eating Taskmaster, as you said, I think Blob is gonna be like pretty solid.
So it works several ways in those Shuri decks, right? So you have 3 cost things left in your deck. Blob is now a 6/13. That wins you a fair amount of games of Marvel Snap. A 6/13 is bigger than almost everything. But like, okay, so you probably throw Psylocke into the deck. You don't have to run Magic. You can just throw Psylocke into the deck because you don't want an extra turn of not drawing, right? Like that's not ideal.
Yeah.
But like, so you just throw Psylocke into the deck, and in your armor lane, you can drop that Blob, right? Or once Kyra's out, that gets even easier. And then you just drop Blob on 5, and it's huge. And if you have Taskmaster, great. If not, you can still Shuri Red Skull, have 28 power. And then if you didn't draw Taskmaster, you just play Blob. And like cards that might still be in your deck include Typhoid Mary and Ebony Maw and Lizard. And like if you just had Ebony Maw and Zero left in your deck, right? And then Taskmaster's the third card. Damn it, you're very unlucky, right? That's still a 14 power Blob. And like
Yeah.
that's good, right? Like that's gonna still win you a fair amount of games.
Yep.
I just like you Shuri Vision, right? And you move Vision somewhere to win, and then you drop Blob in the other lane, and you Shuri Vision because you didn't see Red Skull, and now you didn't see Red Skull, and you're adding 14 right there to Blob with no other downside. There's almost no chance Blob isn't good. The other really, really great Blob combo I heard is Blob has less base power than Hela. So if you're playing like an honest Hela deck, think a Silver Samurai Hela deck, then all of a sudden, like you can play Silver Samurai, it's going to discard Blob, not Hela, and your Hela brings back Blob, and you already have all these big things in your deck because you are, once again, Hela.
That's cool. I didn't think about that. That's cool.
There's on top of Darkhawk, I see almost no way Blob isn't great. I don't know if he's the best of the month because, again, we'll get to Havoc in 2 minutes, but I think there's almost no way Blob isn't one of the 3 best 6 costs you play in the game, along with Doom and Alioth, although I'm not sure Alioth is actually not just number 3 at that point. The other thing about Blob is I think his release is part of why we had to get rid of America Chavez. Because if you ramp into Blob, that guaranteed 9 is
9.
probably not healthy, right?
Minimum
so,
613.
Yeah, minimum 613 is not ideal. Max, like on average 613 now seems right? Whereas minimum 613 seems like it's probably a problem because then you're at 619 with just 3 power cards left in the deck.
Fair.
I think that this card is primarily going to make a lot of people concede when it comes out on a turn 2 X Mansion, and their entire deck is eaten. Or
so does MODOK.
Or when they're. I actually think this is way less fun than MODOK because at least with MODOK, I draw a card each turn. Well, I was just like, okay, I have a big thing. Hopefully, they're all running Shang-Chi. And then also, you're playing this, and it gets a card out early in the game. Will also be a frustrating experience. But I actually do overall agree. I think this is one of the most powerful cards. I think maybe you could say that the Marvels month was a little bit on the weaker side, but I think with the season pass card being the most exciting card probably overall, maybe Annihilus as well. But this month, I think every week, but the season pass card is a really exciting and interesting card worth talking about, as we'll get to now when we transition to Havoc. But before we do that, we need to have Homeboy Maxwell tell us if you were opening caches,
you better pick right here.
Which one would you pick? And which is it? Why it's definitely the not ugly Ravonna Renslayer there.
Yeah, definitely not Ravonna Renslayer.
What?
I don't know. I mean, like, the Blob is kind of like a pimped out Kingpin where I'm vibing with it. But I really, like, the Living Tribunal is, like, a really good piece of art. You know what I mean?
I'm so disappointed in you. So disappointed.
I really dislike that, like, those art styles of that, like, variant specifically.
The Blob?
No, not the Blob. I love the Blob, but like the Ravonna Renslayer.
Oh yeah,
ones.
no
like,
one cares about Ravonna. Ravonna doesn't matter. The Blob is the reason I want that spotlight.
Is the Ravonna?
Is the Ravonna?
The comics accurate Ravonna?
As a comic nerd, Terminatrix is insanely interesting to me.
Okay, man. More power to you.
You are the only one.
I'll rock it proudly in gold.
Sorry, this is the only other thing I'm going to say. Like, you got to think about your split equity. To me, I don't think Blob is going to look as good gold or ink as Living Tribunal will look gold or ink. That card's going to look insane in gold or ink.
But does the Living Tribunal have an amazing handlebar mustache?
You got me on that. You got me on that. I'll concede on that.
All right. So let's go to Alex Summers, the man himself, Havoc. What?
These are not his stats. Reminder quickly.
Okay. These are not his stats.
He's a 2-0.
He's a 2-0. Once again, proving you, folks, just a quick friendly reminder, data mines are not official spoilers from our friends at Second Dinner. So whatever's data mined, do not get salty when it ends up not being true. Okay? Because, again, it's not an official spoiler. But anyway,
Looking at you,
2-0.
She-Hulk bundle.
Yeah. 2-0. Series 4, 3K tokens. What do you get for those 3K tokens? After each turn, lose 1 max energy, and this gains 4 power. Oh, baby.
It's good. At TCG, you're shaking your head. I'll tell you why it's good in a minute. Go for it.
I don't like it. I know why everybody does. I see it's got great gimmick potential, but for me, it just feels like a gimmick. I've never liked Zoo or the aggressive aggro decks that would play it honestly. Like, to play it fairly and honestly, just on my side of the board, I think it's mediocre. I understand the gimmick. I see it, but it's going to go in the same lump for me as people that try to assemble Iron Man Onslaught, yada yada. When the combo works, congratulations. I'm a concede before it happens. Take your 1 cube, enjoy, sir.
Maxwell?
I'm kind of in the same boat of leaning towards terrible. This is the kind of card that is like, there really isn't a medium. Like, this card is either like insane or it's like dog. Like, it's so bad. And I don't know where I lie yet. I see like there's a few ways you can take it, but like my thing is like if you put it in Zoo and you play it on turn 2, you're capped at 2.
Don't do
well,
that.
But like even then, like when are you playing it? Like turn 4,
No.
and then it's a 2/8 that just gets Shadow King. Like, I don't know. It seems really rough to me.
So turn 5 with magic or wave.
But that's the biggest thing to me is like I feel like this card has a huge downside and also just gets eaten alive by the same tech cards everyone's already playing.
Mm-hmm.
So like everyone's already playing Shang and Shadow King. They're very popular. And this card is just like if you're like Shang me daddy, you know what I mean?
If you're playing it with wave, it's just a 2/8. You get 5 energy on the last turn, play your Devil Dino, play your whatever, right? Like play your She-Hulk. Oh, if you're playing it with wave, play whatever the hell you want. You're still going to have 1 extra energy, right?
So I understand for the discussion. You're saying so like you play this on turn 5 with wave,
mm-hmm.
and then turn 6 you go 4 energy card, and then you have 1 energy left over.
Yeah, if I'm playing Evolutionary, for example, because I think this is also a magic deck that is -2 power and +1 power and then plus another power. And like I still manage to play my Hulk and grow my Hulk. Or I play this on turn 5 with magic, and then I get stuck at 5 energy, which I guess is annoying, right? Like I'm not playing a Hulk version of the deck at that point, and I'm running Abomination and She-Hulk instead. And I've got 5 energy to play my 2 0-cost She-Hulks and my 2-cost Abomination, and I'm still fine.
So 2 things about that I have issue with in the high Evo deck specifically is like I feel like actually gaining energy turn by turn is very important for those decks. So you can just full soak a She-Hulk. Like so you know what I mean? Like it's the unspent energy, which is like if you play this turn 5, you're capped at 5,
mm-hmm.
and then they both cost 2, which isn't like bad per se, but you also only have 5 energy to work with, so you have 1 less energy, and they both cost 1 more. Also, like I don't know, like I feel like you just need a lot of things to go right with this card for it to be good, which makes it really inconsistent. Like I feel like a lot of the times you're going to have this card in your hand, and you're not going to want to play it when you draw it, or even the turn after you draw it, because you're like, well, I drew this card, but I can't use it yet because if I use it this turn, I can't play the rest of my deck.
It's not on curve unless you have Viper. It's got 2 other really, really strong combinations. One is Mr. Negative, where if you draw him late, you can play him on turn 5, and you're just perfectly happy to get a 0-6 on the last turn of the game at worst, or an 0-10 if you play it on turn 5. And you've got Ravona in the deck, so if it's not, then it's a 1 cost card. Ravona gives him all sorts of optionality to be played in the late game, so any deck with Ravona, I think, at least looks at him. He's going to be good. I'm not sure he's going to be great, but he's going to be good. It's too much. It's too much power for him to not be good. And what we're seeing with Shadow King right now, what Phoenix Force is teaching me as I'm playing it, is I think certain decks can overload Shadow King with threats.
Yeah. I mean, any tech card, right? Like any like one turn swing tech card can definitely get overloaded with threats. Like same with Shang-Chi, same with Shadow King. I would agree.
Well, so Shang targets tend to be really expensive, right? So like you're only usually getting 1, maybe 2 big Shang targets in a game. But Shadow King targets are all over the board at all times, right? Like if this is in one lane and Sebastian Shaw is in another, if this is on one lane and Werewolf is in another, neither one is necessarily big enough for you to Shang yet, right? And now you're trying to Shadow King one. Great, have fun. I'm glad you Shadow Kinged one. You've just given up another lane. Especially if this costs 1. Or a 0.
It's a hard card to evaluate. I'm really happy they made this card 3,000 tokens, though, because I feel like a lot of people are going to want to mess around with this card. And this is like a really good Series 4 card, in my opinion. Like I think this is going to be a fun week for sure.
Also, if you're playing the Ravona deck, you just throw Viper in the deck. And then it's just once in a while.
I thought about that.
Once in a while, you just get the free turn 3. You don't have a board. Have fun. You don't get energy anymore.
Yeah, like sure, you can win the left tile, but that's it.
But sit there at 3 energy while I auto win the rest of this game. It's
okay. Well, that's another like unique thing about Snap, which I just thought of when you said that, but I think it's important to talk about. Is like a card can have a decent win rate, and maybe it will have a decent win rate, but like I really think like you're gonna know when you can't beat it, and your opponent's not gonna get a lot of cubes out of you, which is like such an important thing. Like I feel like it's gonna be really obvious when you're got. You know what I mean? Like if I have no way to answer the Havoc, like and they snap me and I'm like, okay, like I see where this is going in 2 turns, like I lost my window, like they just get 1 cube out of you or something. Or
they're going to get 2 cubes, and a cube rate of 2 is still stupidly high. What this has going for it that Galactus doesn't is that combo happens early and people stay in on early snaps. With Galactus,
you're talking about like Havoc Viper specifically?
Yeah, the Havoc Viper specific combo. Like your opponent, like you drop Ravona, your opponent's not going, they're Havoc Viper me next turn, right? Or you snap on 2.
I mean, they're
not just like Havoc Vipers. Well, maybe, right? But like at least for a while, they're not immediately going to assume Havoc Viper and run. They're going to go, I don't know what that is. And then you get 2 cubes. And a cube rate of 2 is double a cube rate of 1.
Wow.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah. I agree. Like Havoc Viper is going to be cute, but I don't think that's going to be like the average. Like that is not going to happen consistently enough where like that's going to be the average use case for this card. And I feel like average use case for this card, you're not getting a lot of cubes out of it, in my opinion. That's how I see it playing out.
We can see that.
No.
TCG, any other thoughts about easily the most interesting and controversial card of the month?
No, I don't see it. I'm going to keep it in mind when I'm playing people. And if they go Hood Havoc, I'm gone. Enjoy your 1 cube. I won't even take the risk. I just don't see it being played consistently enough as an aggressive, cheap threat. But the Ravona thing at least has me thinking, so I will revisit it once it comes around for sure. I think that maybe it does have a home in negative. I don't like negative. I don't think it has consistency. But I see the thought process for sure, and I'll revisit it. And it has a great variant. Absolutely amazing variant.
Great transition, my friend. You get to decide which of these 3 you would like to open slot contest for, and definitely say it is. Please don't say it's this Legion, which is so ugly.
It's this Legion. So
I agree.
Anybody who knows me, I keep a running spreadsheet of every spotlight, what the spotlight is, what the variant is, who the art is. That Legion has been on my grail list since it was data mined. The fact that he's popping Professor Xavier's wheelchair is hilarious to me. It's a callback to that 80s kind of like garbage pail kid culture that I grew up with. I'm in love with that Legion. It might be one of the few cards I never split, but I guarantee you it's going to look clean in gold.
All right. Let's move on to the final card of the month, Seline. 1 cost, -1 strength. What is this? Series 5. What is our 6K token -1 get us here? All right. On reveal, afflict the lowest power card in each player's hand with -3 power. All right. Homeboy Maxwell, thoughts on Seline?
I think Seline is really interesting, but I don't see it. Okay, first of all, when I first read this card, I didn't realize it was symmetrical. I didn't realize it was both players' hand gets -3, which makes it a lot better than I initially thought it was. But to me, you don't want to play this in destroy. Sometimes you kind of want trap. You can play hood and destroy because you can eat the hood, right? You can carnage the hood, you can deathlock the hood, whatever. But you wouldn't play this in destroy, so it really only belongs in junk Annihilus. And I think that deck is totally fine. I think this will be a good card in that deck. But beyond that, that's pretty much it. I will say, though, it's playing it turn 1 is really good. This card is so bad to draw, it's insane. And I think that's a pretty real downside is if you draw this turn 5, neither of you are it's not going to have an effect. It's just going to be a -1 body. You're not even going to play it. It's like drawing a rock.
TCG.
It's worse than drawing a rock.
I think it's a useful tech card for very specific matchups. For example, Iron Man matchups. I can see somebody playing this with Bast. I feel this is a great card to play on 1 and then play Bast after to negate any downside that you had. I think it's obviously a great card in anything with goblins, because play this on 2 Green Goblin as a Snake 6 for Galactus or any of those decks that like a nice lane clear is fine, but I don't think it's 6K tokens. Not in this current economics issue we have in the game where 6K tokens.
Not in this economy.
6K tokens for some people's months worth of work. I don't think it's worth it at 6. At 3, I'd probably instant buy it because I'm sure I could really just hornswoggle somebody in a Galactus list with this. But at 6, we're good.
I do think this card is going to be really interesting. Going off of what you said, first of all, at 3K tokens, it's a much more interesting card to talk about because it's a lot more people are going to have it. But this is probably the best card at throwing priority ever, which is really interesting, right? Because you're you there's not a lot of ways to throw priority so hard for yourself.
Hood.
Where I don't know. Yeah, hood, but you give 2 cards bad stats, right? You know what I mean? You could really destroy yourself. Also goblins and stuff like that, which is good in Galactus. Where maybe this I never thought about this in Galactus honestly. But maybe throwing priority and giving your opponents worse goblins is going to make it really good in Galactus, but I'm not sure.
So this is an Annihilus bounce card, through and through for me. It's Annihilus, and you want to play it multiple times, so you're hitting multiple things. Should they play it, odds are you're just hitting the same thing 15 times, but you hit the same one of your things a bunch of times, and then you're giving them a second Hobgoblin for super cheap. I still don't think it's super good. Because you're priced into playing Annihilus in a way you're not with, for example, the Hood, or you can fill the lane with Sentry. You're just sitting there with the -1 and a card you then can't play if you don't have Annihilus, right? And that makes it, I think, worse than it looks like. I think it's at least interesting, but I don't think it's very good. Although everyone's going to have it. I think you guys are wrong about how many people are going to have it, because we'll get to why next slide. The whole game's going to have Seline.
No, yeah.
All right. Well,
It's the goth Nico Minori.
Well, Glazer, why is everyone going to have this card?
So Iron Lad is arguably the best card in Marvel Snap, and it's been in spotlights twice ever. The last time was in August of all times. So Iron Lad's still 6,000 tokens. Iron Lad is completely like must have. It goes in like every goddamn deck. There's probably more powerful single deck cards. I don't know if there's a more powerful goes in a lot of decks cards than Iron Lad in Marvel Snap. So if you can get Marvel Iron Lad, you should be saving your spotlights for the end of the month to get Iron Lad, period. And then I was like, well, I guess you just get Iron Lad. And that's still enough. But then they reworked the Black Knight blade so that now its power can't be reduced and it can't be killed. And Black Knight is phenomenal. Like, so, if you haven't tried Black Knight, and I believe most of our listeners probably have not, he is not a commonly owned card. Since the rework, he's crazy strong. Like, we're just now at this point cutting Black Cat from the decks because we don't need to even mess around with that nonsense. We're basically always getting a 4/12, can't have its power reduced, can't be destroyed. And that's just like wildly powerful. If you go Shuri Shard, that's an automatically armored card. Right? Like if you chuck your Red Skull or Infinite and you go Shuri that's stupid power that's automatically armored. And if you had armor in a different lane, guess what? You're untouchable. And that's like not even to mention the 17 stupid hella things you can do. There's a crazy good Annihilus deck with Black Knight. Black Knight's like a real card and a real like damn near top notch card now. And Iron Lad might be the best card in the game. So like you should get Iron Lad and Black Knight. Save your spotlights for this week, please, dear viewers / listener. Save your spotlights for this week. And if you get Seline along the way, well, great. Hopefully you have Annihilus, because otherwise she's utterly useless.
When we started the whole episode, I mentioned that I didn't like Surfer wasn't the best deck. I really think that Black Knight, people are going to figure out how good that deck actually is. It's obscenely consistent. It's high power for cheap. It has no downsides. It has basically no bad matchup. I think all around it's probably, I'd put it on par with unnerfed Loki in terms of just raw consistency and win rates. Because just there's no poor draw for the deck. The deck draws very consistently both on curve and for power level with very minimal investment.
All right. Let's really give folks the TLDR of our the rest of the season. So, friends, we'll start with you, TCG. What do you think of the best deck's going to be? What decks are you excited to try? What series drop news do you think is going to happen? Any thoughts about the bundles? And how excited are you? Just real quick, power through. What is your big overall looking forward to for this season?
I'm going to be playing a ton of Surfer. I'm looking forward for more communication from Second Dinner about upcoming split changes, border changes, the interesting talk about the new background coming. Something I'm looking forward to because while I am an ink Surfer person, I dislike ink and gold. They feel bland. We've been at it for so long. I've been hoping for more backgrounds. But yeah, lots of Surfer this season. Until I switch decks in January with what we've got coming.
So what would you give it? A to F. What would you give this season coming up, do you think?
Oh, a solid B for sure.
Cool.
Solid B for sure.
All right. Maxwell.
I'm kind of the same boat, actually, pretty much entirely. Different decks I'm excited for. I'm really excited, like for content creators, like you get to build a lot of new stuff, which is one of the best things. And there's so many ideas this season. Like, I feel like last season there wasn't anything super like, this is going to be like a really, like, there's a lot of stuff I can do here. But like Havoc is going to be interesting. Blob comes out the same week as Living Tribunal, and I think people are going to want to play Living Tribunal decks, so that's going to be fun. Really excited. Also, really excited about the series drop news. I'd also give it a solid B.
Glazer?
So, hang on. I'm gonna ask one more question before we go back to that. Do you have any predictions, either of you, about what the series drop news will be?
No. If I could guess what Second Dinner does, I'd be a very rich man.
My only guess is they're gonna mass drop a lot of bad cards, like Howard the Duck and stuff like that. And then I have no idea if they're gonna keep like series dropping stuff. Like I don't think they're just like removing it, because I think if they were just removing it, it would have been in the blog post, right? But I definitely think like they're gonna mass drop a lot of cards that are pretty like bad to unplayable type of stuff, and then hopefully just take some other cards down a peg. Like I don't know, we'll see.
Maybe they remove
Is
5
Iron Lad Series
completely.
5? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, Iron Lad Series 5.
Yeah.
So is Jeff.
I think, like, Iron Lad and Jeff, I'd love to see go to Series 4, but I don't know if that's realistic.
So my working theory is twofold. First, whatever they decide will be insanely complicated for no good reason. It will not be something straightforward. It will not be something that we can understand immediately. Lauren will sit there and do math for 3 days. Second, my other real prediction for series drops is I don't think they're dropping anything to Series 3 anymore. I think they're going to drop things to Series 4 and then stop. And I think they're going to fundamentally, to make up for that, like double the Series 3 acquisition rate. But I think that nothing goes into Series 3 anymore.
That'd be
interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, sorry. Go ahead. Continue, please.
Oh, I was gonna say. So I don't know how many people like in your guys' like immediate circle you've gotten to play Marvel Snap, but I've gotten a lot of my friends to try Marvel Snap, and they all stop playing when they get to Series 3, basically, because it's such like a stark cutoff. Where if they like redid anything with the series drop system, I just hope like the newer player experience gets a little bit better for that.
I've been saying for weeks, literally weeks, every video, every time I speak about anything in any kind of public forum, the biggest problem with series drops and the biggest problem with Snap is Series 3. If you drop things, if you are free to play, it's 6 months to get through Series 3. If you spend a lot, it's still like 4 months. And that's too long of a buy-in to be able to get you to be able to like be competing at a real level of the game with too little player agency. It needs to be fixed, and just dropping a bunch more cards into Series 3 exacerbates the problem instead of fixing it. It's in many ways easier to wait. In many ways easier to wait 2 or 3 months for Iron Lad to get into a spotlight cache that you could save up a resource for and actually choose to get, versus Series 3 and just sort of hope for the best.
Yeah, I could see that.
I'm going to be aggressive, and I think they kick some Series 3 cards into Series 2.
I hope so.
And they kick some things from Series 4 and 5 down into Series 3. And I think they announce that they're going to move stuff down once a year.
That would be interesting. I mean, so I don't know how you guys feel. I don't want to like sidebar this too much, but I really like the Spotlight cache system. I came back to the Spotlight caches, and I thought it was a great change. Like I actually really, really like it. It's not perfect. Like the last 2 times I've pulled, and this is kind of my own fault. I don't know why the wild card you can get in there, like they have 3 cards featured in like, you know, the mystery one. I don't know why that just recycles for 1k tokens when you're still like, I'm not Series 4 or 5 complete, but I get the rebate. Like that's crazy to me. I would like to see them revamp that a little bit, but I overall really like the Spotlight cache system more than what they had before.
Just wait. My Spotlight horror story, I was trying to pull for the Ink Pulp Negasonic Teenage Warhead, and my random was Negasonic Teenage Warhead, and I got 1,000 tokens for it. And I was very confused that could even happen. So I hit Negasonic, which I already had, and got 1,000 tokens instead of my variant, because it just RNG gave me that. And that was literally the moment I almost quit the game. I almost uninstalled and stopped.
So all of that is true. Second Dinner has decided that their monetization is going to be largely gacha based. And the way they're going to prevent everyone from having every card is they're going to use gacha. The reason for that 1,000 tokens is me, because I have every card. Right? The reason you guys get 1,000 tokens where you are is they don't want me to have 2 in 4 chances of pulling the new card. And then it's too easy for me to remain collection complete. And everyone gets to suffer because of players in my position. It's stupid. All of that said, the Spotlight system is still to this day good for players who make good decisions, and it penalizes and punishes the living shit out of anyone who doesn't think about it critically constantly. And if they want the majority of their player base to be casual, and that seems to be what they want, then a system that makes those casual players feel bad all the time, even if it's ultimately good for them if they made better decisions, is probably problematic.
All right.
Wait,
Homeboy.
last thing, and then we'll move on.
Sure.
Sugar and Spice and Everything Ice bundle is 7,500 tokens. It's at the end of this month.
You mean tokens or gold?
Gold, excuse me, 7,500 gold. Sugar and Spice and Everything Ice. It comes with like a stupid amount of tokens and a stupid amount of credits. It's the best bundle they've ever given us for gold. If you can at all afford it, that is the thing to buy. And then B also, and excitement. And I'm done. Go ahead, Roy.
I was going to say, Maxwell, you didn't get a chance to rate your excitement for the season.
You did.
I thought you didn't.
Oh, B, solid B.
Okay.
Mhm.
Glazer, your excitement for the season?
I'm a B. I think B is fair.
All right. Well, let's be cool and move on. Be real. All right, and move on to our final segment of every episode, variant of the week. All right, we'll start with Moon Knight. Who picked this awesome Moon Knight?
Me.
right,
I only have Baby Moon Knight. I like Baby Moon Knight, but I don't need Baby Moon Knight. This one is so minimalist. It's the Hellfire Gala Moon Knight. It's just basically all white with just shading. I think it's gorgeous and perfect, and I plan to buy it.
Forge. Who picked Forge?
I picked Forge. I think I'm really excited for Forge. I got a lot of bad Forge variants, and this is a very good Forge variant.
And he's showing some leg.
There we go.
Yeah. I don't know what's going on in the middle there.
Isn't he possessed by Kuroka or Karaka, however you say it?
Krakoa? Yeah.
Krakoa, there we go.
That's exactly it.
All right. Rogue, that must be you, TCG.
Absolutely. Though I will preface this, every Hellfire art is just literally gorgeous, but I have to pick Rogue. It's one of my favorites. What a great art.
Rogue and Jean were in my second place, but I had to pick this T'Challa because T'Challa's fucking smoking. Like, this is
Absolutely.
like, I love this. Like, he's hot as hell in this. Like, I was like, whoa, all right. Like, it's just a good both T'Challa, good Wakanda like theming as well. Like, it's just really well done. So with some of the one of the best Black Panther variants they've done in a while. That's not like a traditional Black Panther, right? Of him in the suit doing something or something from the movie, right? So really cool. Hellfire overall, I think they're all really good. I'm excited to see more of them. Like, I want to see like the Tony suit and stuff. I don't think the Iron Man one has been spoiled. So we'll interesting to see what they do with Hellfire. All right, that brings us to the end of our episode. Aaron?
Ooh, I'm there. What?
Yeah, I'm telling you to introduce your thing here.
TCG, tell us why our friends should follow you on Twitter.
I have the hottest surfer takes on Twitter. It's not even debatable. I also post some interesting memes on occasion, like my Chavez Wolverine.
It was so good. I stole it.
It was.
All right, so that's not why I follow him, though. I follow him because he's always thinking in a different way and doing something different. And a lot of the Marvel Snap community can fall into lockstep a lot. And a lot of what I try and do in my content, a lot of what I try and bring to the community is different perspectives, different decks, and different ideas. And if you're listening to this, I'm assuming that you feel similarly about the community and how to go about being entertained by it. TCG is 100% someone you should follow. You're going to get different and interesting and smart takes, and you're going to get different and interesting and smart decks, and like, it's 100% worth it. Follow. Although, stream again, man.
Yeah, that's once we get everything set up, I'll be back to streaming.
All right.
All right. Glazer, your spiel about our friend Homeboy Maxwell.
Well, first, where can our people find you, Maxwell, and why should they follow you?
Mostly a YouTube guy. I would follow me personally because I like playing really janky decks, like really like off the beaten path type of decks. And at pretty much at the end of the season, I'm doing it at like top 2000 Infinite. So I'm playing like some weird stuff at like top 2K Infinite, which I think is fun. I think it's interesting. That's why I would watch me.
So I'm not going to remember the deck, but I shared a Maxwell deck last season or 2 seasons ago. And everyone who played it was like, this is unwinnable. And then I watched you play it, and I was just like, no, you're just not as good as he is with it. And like that's
I get that comment all the time. It's so funny.
It-
Like I'll literally drop the stats, and it's just like it's just deaf ears.
no, like so whatever it is, your brain for the game. You know who you actually work like? You work like Collins. Like, have you ever watched Collins
Really?
play a deck? I've watched Collins play a lot of decks. I've watched you play a lot of decks at this point. You and Collins do things in a way where I'm just like, I would not have thought to do that. And then 2 turns later, I'm like, oh, I see why you did that. But 1,000% when you did it, I was like, that's weird. What? Very few people in Marvel Snap do that. And I think that, like, again, difference is what we're about here, not just watching the same people do the same things. Not that there's anything wrong with the same people and the same things, but I mean, you can only do it for so long, right? If you want to watch someone play really interesting decks in a really interesting way, and again, one of the first people I followed and found in Marvel Snap that I really enjoyed, go check him out, Homeboy Maxwell.
Thank you.
No problem.
All right, friends, that brings us to the end of another episode of Snap Judgments. The Counter Guy, I would like to thank you so much for joining us once again.
I'm glad I got to be here now after the whole hiccup at the beginning.
Awesome.
Always enjoyable.
Homeboy Maxwell, thank you so much for joining us.
It was really fun. I had a great time.
All right, loyal listeners, I want to just and viewers, I just want to remind you real quick, you can find us on X at SnapJudgeCast. You should join the Marvel Snap Discord, which is found in the link to it is found in the description of this episode. Our email is snapjudgmentspodcast@gmail.com. We're on Mastodon at snapjudgments with an E at tabletop.vip. And our YouTube channel is at Snap Judgments Pod. And this sadly means that I get to wish or say goodnight to my friend Aaron and wish him an excellent rest of his week and weekend. So, Aaron, as always, it's wonderful doing this show with you each and every week.
Peace and love, everybody.
All right, friends, we are truly and fully out. Make good choices. Keep on snapping.